be time to talk about another pedal. And that pedal is the Nano POG by Electro-Harmonix. I wanted to kind of feature this pedal. It's a really wonderful little pedal. This is the very first pedal that I ever bought for my saxophone. When I started using pedals, one of my main goals was to be able to augment myself to be more than one horn player, which is something that makes sense. You know, a lot of people who play this type of instrument grow up playing in big bands and horn sections, and the main context that we find ourselves in is with more of us. And we find that we are kind of like, how can you say it? We are more interested in replicating ourselves when we start doing effects than anything else, because that is what we know. That's the universe in which we live, where there's a section, whether it's big band, marching band, concert band, funk band, any kind of situation musically, you're likely to find multiple horns together more often than not. So we try to recreate that. So what I did was go out and get the Electro-Harmonix POG. This is the Nano POG, which is the size of a normal pedal, like a standard common one, like a Boss size pedal. And this is an octave pedal. So what it does is, you can see here it has 3 knobs: sub-octave, octave up, and dry. And each knob controls the mix. So it's pretty simple. It creates 3 different sounds, well, 2 different sounds, and lets your main clean signal go through. So if you turn your clean signal all the way up, clean signal being dry, and nothing else on, you know, turn the octave up and the octave down all the way, you will only hear, you will only hear the sound of your saxophone or trumpet or whatever instrument you happen to be playing at that time. And so that is where we will start. So here is the POG with none of the effects engaged. The pedal is on, but the dry knob is maxed out, and the sub-octave and octave up knobs are all the way down. So there you go. That's what it sounds like. Now, you can do a few different things. Not many, but a few, and they're all very effective. You can add in an octave down. So what most people think is, all right, I want them to be the same volume. So I will add in the sub-octave knob all the way. So equal amounts of dry and sub-octave. Both knobs are maxed out. Check this out. What you will notice is that this is a little overpowering, both in terms of kind of a flubbery sound, if you will, and also in terms of the mix of the volume. The lower octave is kind of overtaking. So I'm going to take the lower octave knob down and bring it to 12 o'clock, and we'll see how that sounds. Dry knob is at full, low octave, sub-octave is at 12, the octave up is all the way down. To me, that sounds a lot more palatable, and what you'll notice that I'm doing here is the same as you would want to do with most of other pitch manipulation pedals, and that is use the dry sound to hide the imperfections of the other sounds that the pedal is creating. So if you create the sound that I just did here, where the sub-octave is lower than the dry sound, you're going to get more of a presence of your actual natural tone, because that is going to be the dominating sound in the mix that you're creating with the pedal. So what I tend to recommend is, with any harmony pedal, with any pitch shifter, and with any octave pedal, have the dry sound be a little higher in the mix, even a lot higher in the mix if possible. So let's do the same experiment with the high octave. We just did the low octave. We tried it full on. We tried the dry octave full on with the sub-octave full on. Now we're going to do the same thing with the upper octave. So here's the upper octave all the way maxed out next to the dry. It kind of swallows up the lower dry sound, so I'm going to just do what I did before. Turn the upper octave to 12 o'clock. See how that sounds. So you can hear that it's there, it's available to the ear, but it's not so high up in the mix that you can hear the imperfections. Now, what do I mean by imperfections? Both the upper and the lower octave have their own specific imperfections, and some that cross over. So the first imperfection that I can hear when I'm listening to this is a tiny bit, not a ton, but a tiny bit of lag. And that is because of the processing speed of this pedal. So I'm going to play very staccato, very hard articulation with the low octave, and the low octave is going to be up pretty high. And you're going to hear just the slight delay between my sound and the lower octave. So it's like a bada, 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 like that. And that makes me a little frustrated when I'm using it, when I have to play very percussively at a fast tempo. Although this is actually not too bad. The tracking speed is quite good, not perfect, but I would classify it as quite good. So that's one imperfection that you're hiding, because listen to how you can hear that with more of the lower octave on, and it's not as apparent with less of the lower octave. Listen to this. So you're covering for yourself with that. Now, the other problem with each of these, not problem, I should say, in the imperfection is actually in the tone. So M. Reeves' music had a really good observation that it sounds natural and less processed. That is because mostly I am hiding the tonal imperfections with my dry sound. So to show you what I mean, I'm going to take out my dry sound completely, and then I'm going to play just the low octave all the way. And you're going to hear a couple of imperfections. Listen for the way the tone is and the way it sounds, but also listen for how the articulation sounds. The articulation isn't perfect, which can actually lead to quite serious difficulties in certain scenarios. So listen to this. Again, this is just the octave down with no other sound coming through. So I'm essentially transposing myself down one octave. So as you can hear, it sounds more like a Barry sax that was recorded in the early 50s, late 40s, maybe even earlier, maybe even the 30s. And that's because it's an imperfect circuit for replicating my sound exactly. That's not really what it's meant to do. It's meant to just add that lower octave or upper octave. So what I would classify as an imperfection of this specific sound is that the sound is a little bit muffled, a little muddy, and it does not produce articulation well, which can be a real challenge if you're trying to be a Barry sax using this like I would. So there's a real big difference in certain pedals between this one's ability to turn you into a Barry sax if you're a tenor, and another. For example, I will show you what it sounds like when you play that same setting, the octave down transposition like this. And I will do that same thing on another pedal, the whammy 5, and you'll notice how much more convincing as a baritone saxophone transposed down from a tenor that is. So here is that Barry sound. And then here is the POG doing the same thing. So there you go. It's quite apparent that not all pedals are created equal when it comes to creating that type of sound if you're a saxophone. So what you're noticing here is that the articulation response on the POG is not great. tonally it's not bad. It does sound a little kind of like it's inside of a garbage can a little bit, but it works. Let's try the same thing with the upper octave. So here's the upper octave all by itself. So that's actually kind of nice. I would posit that it sounds a little bit metallic, and it suffers from similar issues as the lower octave, where it doesn't quite sound super organic and the articulation is a little bit suspect. But it might be a little bit more pleasant on the ear, say than the whammy. So here is another Here's another juxtaposition. The whammy, we're going to use the whammy as the octave up pedal now. So you're going to find this one's a little bit more strident, a little harsher. So you'll notice, yeah, that's the thing. The whammy sounds so clean. You'll notice, I'll plug the POG back in, and you'll notice that the POG sounds a little bit messy, a little bit unkempt, if you will. It sounds like there's just a lot of extra stuff happening. So listen to this. There just seems to be a lot of kind of noise to that pedal, and it kind of sounds clunky. Here's the bass again, the bass octave. Not super clean, but this is why you use the dry sound to mask the imperfections. So here's the dry sound full with what I would consider a good tenor with bari sound sax. So that's cool. That can be really useful. Now, if you have, let's say you and a trumpet player in a horn section, you can be two horns at once and be pretty convincing and really contribute to the overall sound. Let's do the same thing. Let's find a good mixture of octave up and dry and see what we can find there. So that can really be useful. So let's kind of see this in context. So one of the things that I've done in the past, one of the first songs I remember playing and finding a sound that I really liked was Billy Joel's Movin' Out. I played this along with it, and it sounded really good using the POG. This is like the first time I successfully used effects on a song. So let's see where it worked out and how it sounded. Mama, if that's moving up, then So this is the part right here. I'm moving out. So as you can see, that kind of approximated the horn section there, which I think has even a clarinet in there. There's all kinds of stuff going on, timbrally. But that kind of allowed me to access something within that song that worked really well. So I'm very, very excited about this pedal as kind of like the genesis of my pedal journey. So this is a really cool pedal to use even on a solo section. However, if you're playing something super percussive, this will not be your best friend. Because, and I'll show you what I mean. I'll play something like extra percussive, like that Cory Wong song. And you'll notice that I'll add in the low octave so I can have like me and a Barry playing unison, or just kind of a different overall sound with two different pitches. Notice how it's just missing something when it's being played in a percussive, funky type of way. So you can hear it's not like perfectly well suited to that kind of situation, but you know, it does have some benefits to it even then. So yeah, that's the POG. It is an exceptionally good octave pedal, especially starting out. It's so easy to use. You just literally turn the dial and literally dial in however much of each octave you want. Your sound, octave below, octave up. It's a really wonderful pedal. It was my first pedal. I love it so much. And yeah, you should definitely check it out.